You know, I watched this movie and I was like, man, this dude Ryan Coogler he's my favorite filmmaker. I mean, every time he tells a story, he is focused on the story. And I know he's meticulous about the technology of it too. I know he loves film and cameras and, you know, all the minutia of figuring out how it's going to look and what's going to best serve the story. But at the end of the day, I know that he's most interested in the story. And you could tell, because this $80 million film, I swear to God, it felt like an indie film. Like, it felt like a small film to me. You know, the story wasn't like blockbuster feeling. It felt like an intimate, beautiful story, even though it was a horror film, which I hate horror films. I don't even watch horror films ever. And at the beginning of the movie, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this movie. Like, I don't really feel like watching people biting each other and bleeding all over the place and flying through the air. And but it wasn't a horror film at all. It was really a beautiful story. And I got to say, the characters in this film were amazing. Like, memorable like The Wire kind of memorable, like those kind of characters. And, you know, ironically, I say The Wire because Michael B. Jordan, I was watching him on that screen play himself and his twin brother, and I was thinking, man, we watched you grow up on screen. I remember him like a kid in The Wire, you know, a young kid, and here he is like 20 years later, a grown, really, really evolved, amazing, high-level actor, you know, like standing there with people like Delroy Lindo and, you know, just being a fantastic, you know, immersion of the characters, you know, like completely immersing himself in two people. And also that was amazing. Like, I don't know how they did that, you know. I know they probably had to shoot scenes multiple times. They probably used doubles. I'm sure they used a lot of, you know, really cool post-production kind of stuff, but I swear to God, you'll never feel like Michael B. Jordan is the same person. Like, you don't ever think like this is one actor. You're going to think there are two actors playing Stack and Smoke. And it's remarkable, actually. And I would say that the music, which was basically the star of the film, the blues, unbelievable score, like just incredible score. Also, the footage was amazing, like these amazingly beautiful, like majestic shots of these cotton fields. But then you're reminded, like, yo, these are fucking cotton fields, and everything that represents about our culture. And yet it looked so gorgeous, you know, it just looked beautiful. And then all these horrible things were happening, and, you know, it was depicting, you know, life in the 1920s and, you know, racism and the way things were at that time, and, you know, still to this day. But man, it was just like, if you hear a lawnmower, somebody's cutting grass right now. But anyway, I'm out here at these ecological gardens at Vassar College. It's pretty amazing out here. I run here in the mornings. It's like unbelievable trail that goes, it's like a dirt trail, and then it goes into the forest, and you're in the woods, and it feels a lot like Marin County in California. I don't know if you know that place, but there's a trail that goes from the Mill Valley Library up over Mount Tam and ends at Stinson Beach. It's a 6-mile trail, and you kind of feel like you're going through Sherwood Forest. It's amazing. But anyway, I digress. You know, the characters in this film are amazing. The shots, yeah, like the footage is just unbelievably gorgeous. The composition, you know, the depth of field, the use of depth of field. Like, you know, in a lot of films, you don't notice a lot of blurry background. Like, I think most filmmakers usually shoot around f8 or f11. Like, it's really more about what's in the frame, what's in the foreground, what's in the background, and they're not really trying to like obliterate anything. But in this film, there was a lot of really tiny depth of field, like really, really small, and it was just used beautifully. And so to me, it looked like a painting. You know, like everything just looked like, you know, Leonardo da Vinci or something, like just beautiful, beautiful colors, and it was kind of dark, which I love because I like to shoot things dark. And it was gorgeous. But I think the part that I want to talk about, and I saved this for the end of the video because I felt like if I said this at the beginning, you would have turned it off when, I don't want to hear about this. But this movie made me feel kind of hopeless. And you know, hopeless, like when I think about racism, when I think about, you know, how this cultural thing that, you know, was was created because we're all just human beings, right? But we created color. And even though we're all different colors, but we're all the same species, we're human beings, we're all the same. It just made me feel hopeless, like it's never gonna get better, it's never gonna change. It is what it is, it's always been this way. And as much as we make it more comfortable or whatever over the years, although right now I happen to feel like we're in the worst time in our history like this, like I feel like, is this the end of us? Like, it just feels weird to me. But this film made me feel like there's such a difference between black culture and white culture. And there were Asian characters in the film too, which was pretty amazing, and I learned a lot about that. I had no idea that there were, you know, a whole, you know, like a whole life of there was this whole existence of Asian culture in Mississippi during that time. You know, after slavery, they couldn't get anybody to work in the cotton fields, so a lot of Chinese people and a lot of Asian people came and worked in the fields, worked in the cotton fields after that for nothing, for basically no money. But also, they created like stores, like, you know, obviously, if you had like a general store in Mississippi right after slavery, they still didn't allow black people into the store. And so Asian people created, you know, had these stores where they allowed everybody in, you know, black people, white people, and they even accepted credit for people who didn't have money, so everybody would eat. And so, you know, the mentality of people coming from other countries, you know, who were not white, and kind of bonding with one another, but yet still staying separate to a certain extent. I mean, it just, you know, like the differences that people had to experience with their lives just because of the way they looked, and it's still this way. And, you know, it's something that I personally have been very sensitive about my whole life. And it was like a story of resilience and of joy and of love and of all the most beautiful things, but also a story of white supremacy, you know, of oppression, of all the horrible things. And I thought, like, look at us now, look what's going on in this country right now. You know, I felt like this movie was made to document black history as well. There was so many cool, I'm not gonna give you anything that's gonna take anything away from going to see it, so I'm not gonna get specific about anything, but I felt like this film was made to document black history, like, so we never forget it, you know, especially using the blues, using music as a metaphor for that. It was just so brilliantly done. Like, Ryan Coogler is so smart. Forget about creative and talented and all this kind of stuff. He's so intelligent with it, you know. I was so grateful to be sitting in that theater receiving this story, receiving this film, you know. But I did feel like it's a document, and it's telling things that there are a lot of places in this country that are literally not allowed to tell anymore, now in this day and age. And so I'm watching this movie and I'm looking at the love between these family members and their community members among their own people, like black people taking care of one another, looking out for one another, how strong the community was, the church, the people who were outside of the church, like the whole thing. And the way white people looked at them, it was, you know, it's funny because as soon as the movie started, I started crying. Because I'd seen a bunch of interviews with Ryan Coogler for the last few months, and I knew that this was going to be a film that was going to destroy me. And so I was crying as soon as it started. I was like hoping nobody was looking at me. And then when the movie ended, there were not a lot of people in this theater. I was like way upstate. I saw it. I felt like it was a private screening. But there were probably 30 or 40 people there. And when the movie ended, I just sat in my seat and I cried like a baby. I was just sitting there weeping. As a matter of fact, this woman came in to clean the theater after the movie was over, and she walked in and she saw me and she's like, "Oh, sorry," and she walked out. Like she came into my private little space. But I was just so overwhelmed with the whole thing, and I was thinking about what made me cry. Like, what is it that made me feel so deeply emotional about this? Because, you know, my whole life is about screaming about racism. You know, this is why a lot of white people are really uncomfortable with me, but also why a lot of black people don't want to hear it from me. You know what I mean? Like, they're tired of white people, and it's hard to tell who's a real ally and who's just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just complicated. And so I've often said, like, I'm kind of like, white people can't stand me and black people don't believe me, and I'm standing here all by myself sometimes, which it's fine. I don't care about any of that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just always going to be who I am and always going to fight for what I think is right. And I'm never going to be silent. I'm never going to be quiet about it, ever. So I really investigated myself. You know, I looked inside and I was thinking, like, what made me cry so much? Like, I was sobbing, you know, just weeping. And I couldn't stop. I was like inconsolable. All the way out of the theater and to my car. And then I sat in my car and I just cried and cried. And I was trying to figure out why it affected me in that way. And I realized that, you know, once again, I learned an incredible lesson from the black people in my life, you know, which I learn this lesson all the time. Is that no matter what you do to people, no matter what you do to people who come together as a community and take care of one another and love one another, and, you know, it's like the moments that are important, these moments, you know? And I realize that I've been saying this forever on social media and to friends. Like, I always say that no matter how difficult things are, no matter how fucked up things are, no matter how bad everything seems, no matter how hopeless, whatever, no matter what the situation is, there's always something beautiful right there. There's absolutely, every single time, no matter how dramatic it is, no matter how, you know, despicable, no matter how, you know, like hopeless it feels, it's like there's always something incredibly beautiful right there. You just have to look for it. You have to be willing to, and that's the spirit, you know, that's our spirit, that's our faith, that no matter what you're doing to me, there's something here that I can appreciate, that I can feel good about, that just fills me up, you know, that you can't take from me. That's my joy, you know. That's what I got from this film. Like, these black people who had endured so much shit, you know, that their lives were literally on the line every day with every move that they make. They couldn't even look at somebody white for too long because they would be killed. Like, they had to live this kind of crazy existence, and yet they were the most joyful people, the most, like, the happiest, friendliest, most welcoming people. You know, I once asked a friend of mine, how can you be so happy? Not only are you black, but you're a woman, you know? And she's like, I'm just happy. You know, I'm grateful for everything that I have, everything that I can do, everything that I have the opportunity to be involved with, the people in my life. That's what I got from that film. You know, it made me feel hopeless. It made me feel despondent. It made me feel angry, furious, but it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I don't know that I've experienced. It was like right up there with when I saw Cinema Paradiso for the first time, and I remember the first time I heard Keith Jarrett play piano. You know, I was in college and I heard the Cologne concert, or the Colon concert. I don't even know how you pronounce it. It's like a legendary, iconic recording, and I remember thinking to myself, I never want to feel any different ever again in my life than I'm feeling right now in this moment. That's what I felt like watching Sinners the whole time. And the movie's almost 3 hours. And the whole time I just kept saying to myself, oh my God, like, this is so fucked up, but I feel so, like, I want to feel this all the time. Like, I felt so honored to sit there and watch this film. I felt so grateful. I keep using that word, but that is what I felt. You know, it was like, it was such a gift to be able to receive that work. And so I hope everybody goes to see it. And as a filmmaker, I think that's what we should strive for. Like, fuck all the camera bullshit and the gear. Of course gear matters. It's such a stupid conversation. It's like, it's amazing to me that we dwell so much on gear and dynamic range and all this kind of shit, like color science. Like, we dwell on it. But how much are you really dwelling on telling a story to make people feel beautiful? Because you know what? There are so many technically perfect things made of art that make you feel nothing, because you can tell that they just go right past the story. They go right past the people, the heart, the soul of it. You know what I mean? It's like, but when people focus on the thing, you know, affairs of the heart, of the spirit, of the soul, of our faith, of our relationships, it doesn't matter what it looks like or what it sounds like or whatever. I mean, of course you want to do your best. Of course you want 32-bit float. Of course you want to shoot 12K or whatever. Like, of course. Who doesn't want the best? Everybody wants the best. Of course you want to be like Ryan Coogler and have an $80 million budget so that you can do those things. Of course you want to be Roger Deakins on 1917 and figure out how to shoot like one long shot of a whole film. Like, technology is amazing. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with wanting to shoot anamorphic like I love to do, or with vintage lenses. Or, you know, it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's, as long as you don't forget that the story is the thing. Like, that's the only thing. You know, like, the story is the only thing that matters. Because all the rest of it, that's for us. That's for the filmmaker. That's for the artist. But for the people receiving it, for the audience members, for the people who we get to share this with, it's really about the story. It's about, they want to see themselves. They want to feel like this story has something to do with them, that it's relatable, that it's educational in some kind of way, but it's including them. You know, like my first director said to me, it ain't a good story unless it's a story about all of us. And so I think we need to remember that. And I think if you see Sinners, there's a lot of stuff here I want to talk about, but I'm not going to, because I just want you to see it without thinking about anything. You know what I mean? Just how impressed I was, and how everybody, I mean, it's going to win all kinds of awards, I'm sure. It should. You know, remarkable acting, amazing directing, produce, all of it. All of it is incredible. I saw an interview with the woman who dealt with, you know, the design of the film, the set design, the clothing, like all of that, and she's so deep. This woman is such a deep soul. Like, everybody in every interview, Delroy Lindo, I mean, listen to him talk about the film. It's like a spiritual thing. Saul Williams, come on, come on. So beautiful. If you want some beautiful in your life, go watch Sinners. And if you want to add beautiful to the universe and to the world, be an artist and tell stories. And, you know, get the best camera that you could get the best sound equipment, get all the best that you can afford, but don't be preoccupied with it, and don't ever let it stop you from telling the best story that you could possibly tell. You know, even if you just have a Panasonic GH5 or your phone or an S5 or a Sony a6400 or a Sony Venice, like whatever you have, don't let it stop you. Don't let it kind of misguide you and push you away from the thing that really matters. Don't let it do that, because then we all lose out, you know, like it's like a shame for everybody. Because what I saw in that theater, what I experienced, what I felt, and then I got to talk to my friend Lisa about it, my friend Audrey and Kathleen, and, you know, I got to speak to my people about it. And that's the beauty of it, you know, I get to talk about it. We get to discuss these things that Ryan Coogler put in our spirits, and now we get to digest it and become better people. You know, we feel the empathy that he comes from. I feel like, you know, if you saw Fruitvale Station or any of his other films, you know, and, you know, he does things in films like I saw in a video that he did something to shout out Chadwick Boseman in the film, you know, who passed away. May he rest in peace. And I didn't see it. I got to go back, and I'm going to see this film like 5 times. I did notice that in one shot, I see 3 crosses with a preacher and his son. It's a beautiful shot. And I see 2 crosses on either side of them and 1 cross on top. And I noticed it in the film, and then I saw a video and it said it represented the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And so he had these little details in the film that you're not really going to notice, and you don't even have to notice them, but you get them through osmosis, you know, because what you're really getting at the end of the day is the story. That's really the most important thing. It's the only thing. But all the other stuff, the beautiful shots of the environment, this, you know, just everything looked so gorgeous. It's not what you consciously notice, but subconsciously you're getting it. It's because it's gorgeous, you know. It's like if you're a real person with a real heart and a real soul, and you meet somebody who you're incredibly attracted to physically, that's not going to be the thing that attaches you to that person. It's going to be their soul, you know, who they are as a person, the conversation that you have, the exchange that goes on between the two of you, and then all of a sudden that's just extra, you know. And of course, there's nothing wrong with it. It's amazing to feel that kind of, you know, that kind of visceral you know, that visceral kind of thing that comes over you. You know, it's funny, I can't even think of a word. It's like when I talk about love sometimes, like nobody can find the words to describe love, right? It just is. Like I had t-shirts that say love just is, because you cannot verbalize love. You can't do it. You can't tell me in words what love feels like, what it is, none of that. You could try, but you ain't gonna succeed. That's what great art is, and that's what life and relationships and connection, that's what we're always chasing as artists. We're chasing how to show it, you know, how to show what we know, to remind us of the beautiful things. So even if you go to a movie and you feel hopeless, I think it's our responsibility to sit there and receive the difficult parts and look for the beautiful things, because that's what life is about. Life is fucking hard. Life is one problem after another. You know, it's like you're born and then you start dying the next day. But what happens in between is up to us, you know, even in the most difficult of situations. And I really believe that, and this film reminded me of that. So yeah, go see Sinners. Don't be so preoccupied with your camera, but get the best camera that you can, you know, all of that. And, you know, be a great artist and help to remind us. Or if you're not an artist doing that, take the responsibility to look for the beautiful in everything that somebody provides you with when they show you a work of art. You know, it's not all bad. They're taking something difficult. They're taking Schindler's List. They're taking the Holocaust. And it's a beautiful film. It's about resilience. It's about the human spirit. It's about love. It's about amazing things. At the same time, about the most despicable possible thing. That's what art is. Go see Paradise Now or Turtles Can Fly. You're welcome.